All right, hey everyone, welcome to this deep dive where we're tackling something pretty amazing. I think flourishing.
Flourishing, yeah.
It's something a lot of you have been asking about,
Yeah.
and we want to get into the nitty-gritty of what it really means to flourish. Going way past just feeling happy
Absolutely.
to actually thriving in every sense.
Mm.
So we've got a ton of research piled up here ready to dig into,
Yeah, we've got some great research.
and we're going to unearth all the coolest insights.
Absolutely.
So how about we start with the basics? How do we even define flourishing? It's one of those things that sounds kind of big and out there,
Yeah, well, think of it like this. You've got a plant that's just barely surviving, right? Just hanging on.
Okay.
Now, picture another plant that's just bursting with life full of color, reaching for the sun.
Yeah, I see.
That's the difference between just existing and flourishing. It's about being at your absolute best, functioning at your peak, not just feeling okay, but really alive.
So it's about more than just feeling good.
Way
There's more to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Flourishing has all these different sides to it. It's not just happiness. It's about how you're doing mentally, socially, even emotionally.
I like that.
It's about purpose, meaning having strong connections with people.
Oh, that makes sense.
In fact, researchers often talk about flourishing as the opposite of languishing,
Languishing.
which is like that feeling of being stuck,
Yeah.
just going through the motions, not really getting anywhere.
So flourishing is like the opposite of autopilot.
Exactly. It's about growth. It's about purpose. It's about connection.
I'm digging it.
And this is where it gets really interesting. Flourishing actually brings together two different types of well-being,
Okay.
hedonic and eudaimonic.
Hedonic and eudaimonic.
Now, hedonic well-being, that's what a lot of us think of as just plain happiness,
Okay.
those feel-good moments.
Yeah.
Enjoying a delicious meal, listening to your favorite music.
Right. So hedonic well-being is about pleasure, enjoyment.
Exactly.
So then what's eudaimonic well-being about?
That's all about meaning and purpose. It's about living a life that matches your values, using your strengths, and feeling like your life has a direction.
So like volunteering for a cause you really care about,
Yeah.
or finding that deep satisfaction in the work you do.
Exactly. And here's the key. You need both hedonic and eudaimonic well-being to really flourish.
So it's not like one or the other.
Nope.
You can't just chase happiness and expect to be truly flourishing.
Right. You need both. It's like a recipe. You need the right mix of ingredients to make an amazing dish.
Okay, so we've got this recipe for flourishing,
We do.
and it's got these two key ingredients, hedonic and eudaimonic well-being.
Exactly.
Right.
And what's really cool is research consistently shows that people who have higher levels of flourishing, they also say they're more satisfied with life, more optimistic, and even better at bouncing back from challenges.
Okay, so this flourishing thing, it's starting to sound pretty good.
It is. It really is.
But if it's like a recipe with all these ingredients, what are ones we really got to focus on?
Well, researchers have found several key parts of flourishing. One way to think about it is like 6 core areas. These aren't just some abstract ideas. They're like the pillars holding up a thriving, fulfilling life.
Okay. I like the pillars of a flourishing life. So what are these pillars?
Well, the first one is pretty straightforward: happiness and life satisfaction. This includes those positive emotions we talked about.
All right.
But it goes deeper than just a quick burst of joy. It's about feeling truly content with where your life is headed, even with all the ups and downs we all go through.
Yeah, so it's more than just a good mood. It's a deeper
A
feeling
deeper.
of being satisfied with your life as a whole.
Exactly.
I like it. All right, what's the next pillar?
The next one is mental and physical health. Now, this doesn't mean you have to be perfectly healthy to flourish.
Okay, good, because nobody's perfect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it does show how important taking care of yourself is.
Right, because if you don't take care of your body or your mind, it's got to make it harder to thrive in other areas too.
Absolutely. It's like trying to build a house on a foundation that's all wobbly.
Yeah, that's not going to work.
Not a good idea. All right, the third pillar. This one's about meaning and purpose.
Yeah, okay.
It's about having a sense of direction in life, feeling like what you do matters, and connecting to something bigger than yourself.
I think that's something a lot of people struggle with these days.
I agree.
It's so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day and lose sight of the bigger picture.
Absolutely. And that's exactly why finding meaning and purpose is so important for flourishing.
All right, meaning and purpose, that's pillar number 3. What's next?
The next one might sound a little old school,
Oh,
but stick with me. It's character and virtue.
character and virtue.
Yeah. This is about those positive qualities that help us live with integrity.
Oh,
And
yeah.
things like honesty, kindness, perseverance, courage.
So basically just trying to be a good person.
Exactly. And research actually suggests that practicing these virtues doesn't just make us better people,
Uh-huh.
it actually adds to our overall well-being.
Interesting.
Okay, pillar number 5. This one's a biggie: close social relationships.
Okay, everyone loves their friends and family.
Right. Because we're social creatures. We
Yeah.
need those connections with others. They're fundamental to our well-being.
I think deep down we all know that.
You do.
We crave connection. We want to belong. It's like it's in our DNA.
It is. Strong, supportive relationships. They give us a sense of love, belonging, and purpose. They help us deal with stress and get through tough times. They're absolutely essential for a flourishing life.
All right, so that's 5 pillars down. What's the last one?
The 6th one is financial and material stability.
Okay.
Now, this one's not always included in every framework,
Okay.
but let's be real. It's hard to focus on meaning and purpose when you're constantly worried about basic stuff like food and shelter.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Having those basic needs met reduces stress
Sure.
and frees you up to focus on other parts of flourishing. Financial security, it gives you a sense of safety and freedom, which are crucial for going after other goals and passions.
It's like you've got to have a solid base
You do.
before you can really build upwards.
Yeah, exactly. And here's the most important thing to remember about these 6 dimensions. They're all connected. They influence and support each other.
They work together.
They do. For example, having strong social relationships can actually boost your happiness and your mental health.
I can see that.
And finding meaning and purpose can give you the motivation to take care of your physical health.
So it's like they all work together
They do.
to create this upward spiral of flourishing.
Precisely.
So we've got these pillars, these dimensions, it's all coming together. But I'm curious, what does this actually look like in real life? I mean, are there people out there who are actually flourishing, like really living this way?
You know what? That's a fantastic question. And the answer is a big yes. Researchers have actually studied people who are considered high flourishing. And here's the interesting part. They're not necessarily famous or rich.
Okay, so they're just everyday people.
Exactly. Just everyday folks who seem to have figured out the secret to living a truly fulfilling life.
So what makes these high flourishing people different? What's their secret sauce?
Well, one thing that really jumps out is how they handle challenges. See, flourishing isn't about never having hard times. It's about being resilient, being able to navigate those tough times in a healthy way. These high-flourishing individuals, they tend to see obstacles as chances to grow, not as roadblocks that stop them in their tracks.
So it's not about having a perfect life.
No, not at all.
It's more about how you react when things get tough.
You got it. It's about having that inner strength, that flexibility to adapt and bounce back. For example, one person in a study, she lost her job out of the blue. It was a huge blow, but instead of giving up, she used it as a chance to rethink her priorities. And you know what? She ended up starting her own business, something she'd always wanted to do but never had the guts to do before.
So she turned a setback into a success.
Exactly. She turned that difficult situation into an opportunity.
That's pretty inspiring.
It is. And that resilience, it seems to come from a deep sense of purpose. These high flourishing people, they have a clear why driving them. They're not just going through the motions. Their lives are anchored by a sense of meaning, something bigger than themselves.
So it's like their life has a purpose, a driving force that keeps them going.
Exactly. Another study participant, a retired teacher, he found his purpose in volunteering at a local community garden. He was passionate about sustainable living, and teaching others about it brought him so much joy and a renewed sense of purpose.
It's amazing how helping others can actually make you feel more fulfilled yourself.
Absolutely. And that interconnectedness, it extends to another big part of flourishing strong social connections.
Yeah.
These high flourishing people, they make relationships a priority. They put time and effort into nurturing those bonds.
So it's not just about having a ton of friends.
No.
It's about putting in the work to build meaningful relationships.
Exactly. It's about cultivating those deep, supportive connections that bring us joy, comfort, a sense of belonging. One woman in the study talked about how her weekly game nights with friends were vital for her well-being. It wasn't just about having fun. It was about feeling seen, understood, supported by people who genuinely cared.
Yeah, I can see that.
That's
Especially these days when it's so easy to feel isolated.
exactly. That sense of community can be so powerful. And speaking of powerful, these high-flourishing individuals also seem to really understand the importance of physical and mental well-being.
Makes sense.
They make taking care of themselves a priority, but not in an obsessive way. It's more about finding a balance that works for them.
So not about striving for some unrealistic idea of perfect health.
No, not at all.
More about making choices that support your well-being.
Exactly. One guy in the study, he talked about how his daily morning walks in nature were essential for his mental clarity and emotional well-being. It wasn't about punishing himself with a crazy workout. It was about finding an activity that brought him peace and helped him feel grounded.
Finding those things that nourish your mind, body, and soul.
Exactly. And this brings us to another key insight. Flourishing, it's not a fixed state, it's a journey. It's all about continuous growth learning, adapting. These high flourishing people are lifelong learners, always looking for new knowledge, new experiences that broaden their horizons.
So it's about staying curious and engaged with life no matter how old you are.
You got it. One woman in the study, she was in her 70s and she just started taking guitar lessons. She'd always loved music but never made time for it. Learning that new skill brought her so much joy and a renewed sense of purpose.
I love that. It's never too late to pursue your passions.
Never too late. And what's truly inspiring about these people is they show us that flourishing, it's possible for anyone. It doesn't matter what your circumstances are.
That's really encouraging.
Yeah.
But what about people who face really tough challenges,
Yeah.
like systemic barriers or difficult life situations? Can they still flourish?
That's such an important question. And while personal effort definitely matters, we can't ignore the fact that the environments we live in also play a role in our ability to flourish.
So it's not all on the individual.
Right.
It's also about creating communities that support everyone's growth.
Exactly. Imagine trying to grow a plant in bad soil with no sunlight.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
It wouldn't stand a chance. It's the same with humans. We need access to resources, opportunities, and supportive networks to truly flourish.
So fostering flourishing, it's a team effort.
It
It's
is.
about creating the right conditions for growth for everyone, both individually and as a society.
Precisely.
It's really becoming clear that flourishing isn't just about what we do as individuals. It's about creating a world where everybody has a real shot at thriving. It doesn't matter where you come from or what your circumstances are. But I've got to say, I've heard some people brush off this whole idea of flourishing like it's just some trendy feel-good thing for people who don't have real problems. What would you say to those folks?
Yeah, I get that. It's easy to be cynical, especially these days. But here's the thing. Flourishing isn't just some fluffy concept. It's grounded in solid research. And we're finding some really fascinating connections between flourishing and actual positive changes in the brain.
Hold on. Really? So there's science behind this?
Absolutely. There are studies that show people who practice gratitude regularly, which is a big part of flourishing, they actually have increased activity in the parts of the brain linked to happiness and feeling rewarded.
So it's like we can actually rewire our brains to feel more joy.
Exactly. It's not just about thinking positive thoughts, it's about creating real, lasting changes in how our brains work.
That's wild. And it goes beyond just happiness, right?
Oh, yeah. Research on mindfulness meditation, which is another powerful way to boost flourishing, has shown that it can actually increase gray matter in the areas of the brain connected to things like self-awareness, compassion, and emotional regulation.
So we can actually train our brains to be more resilient, more compassionate, more in tune with ourselves.
That's the amazing part. The more we learn about the science behind all this, the more we realize we have the power to make choices that support our own flourishing.
Okay, so flourishing is great. It's achievable. And there's science to back it up. But then why aren't we all doing it? What's holding people back from experiencing all these benefits?
Well, one big hurdle is just plain old lack of awareness. A lot of people haven't even heard of this concept of flourishing, let alone know what it really means or how to actually make it happen in their lives.
So if you don't know it exists, how can you go after it, right?
Exactly. And even for the people who do know about it, there can be this gap between knowing and doing.
Yeah, I get that. It's like knowing you should eat healthy and exercise, but actually making it a habit is a whole other story.
Exactly. It takes effort. It
Yeah.
takes being intentional. And sometimes it even takes a little help to turn that knowledge into something you do day in and day out. What about you? What do you think gets in the way?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with how our society is set up. We're constantly told we need to be more productive, more successful, more attractive. It's exhausting. And honestly, it just doesn't feel that fulfilling.
I hear you. It's like we're on this treadmill of always wanting more, and we've completely lost sight of what truly matters.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We're chasing external validation instead of looking for fulfillment from within.
And that's a key difference. Flourishing requires us to shift our focus. From chasing those temporary pleasures to searching for deeper meaning, from seeking approval from others to cultivating self-acceptance.
It's about living a life that's true to yourself.
That's it. And that looks different for everyone.
Well, this has been such a fascinating deep dive into flourishing. I feel like we've just scratched the surface, but unfortunately, we're out of time. Any final words of wisdom you want to leave our listeners with?
Just remember that flourishing, It's a journey, not a destination. It's a process of growth discovery and being kind to yourself. Be patient. Embrace those ups and downs. And celebrate every step you take towards a more fulfilling and meaningful life. You got this.
Beautifully said. And on that note, we'll leave you with this. What's one small step you can take today to cultivate a more flourishing life for yourself? Until next time, keep seeking, keep growing, and keep flourishing.